marijuana's not for everyone. Alcohol's not for everyone. Like I'm not here to say one is better than the other. But what I would say is if you're gonna drink or you're gonna smoke, you're gonna do it whether it's legal or illegal. And for me, having it legalized means that there's safer product on the shelves.
Right.
Kids are not getting legal marijuana from a dispensary, right? You have to go through 3 ID checks just to buy marijuana in Massachusetts. So no child is getting served. And people who sort of fearmonger that, hey, it's all out there and kids get access to it, that's the whole reason you should legalize it. Because if there's things that are illegal, it's easier for kids and minors to get these products than it would be if it's regulated like alcohol is.
Welcome to Manufacturing Insiders. Today I have Anna Dorcey with me. We are going to talk about an interesting topic today, something a little bit outside the box from our normal manufacturing conversations, but manufacturing nonetheless. Anna Dorcey is the owner of U4EA Farms, U4EA Farms, and they are marijuana growers. And they not only manufacture the product and grow it, but they also market it directly to consumers. And some of the interesting things about this operation are just the ways that Anna is kind of applying some of the vast knowledge she acquired in the tech industry and some pretty high level positions to this business, but also how she's dealing with regulation to an extreme extent. All manufacturers deal with regulation, but in this specific space, it's a lot more. So welcome to Manufacturing Insiders, Anna. Glad to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to talk to you about what we produce here and hopefully dispel some of the stigma around it, because I do think that in today's world, cannabis it's got probably a mixed perception out there. And
Yep.
we are a business just like any other. We are legal in the state of Massachusetts. And so we do everything by the book as any other manufacturer might do with our processes and et cetera. So I'm happy to share a little bit about that and answer questions that you think our audience would like to learn about the cannabis industry.
Yeah, that sounds great. I think you'll educate a lot of us here. Before I get too far into it, if you are enjoying the content we're putting out, please hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Follow us on LinkedIn, all the social platforms you can find us, share our posts, and listen to us on your way to work. If you're a manufacturing leader and you feel like you have some insights that would be helpful to other manufacturing leaders, go to manufacturinginsiders.com, fill out the form there, and we'd love to have you on as a guest. So, Anna, how do you set up a marijuana manufacturing facility? Like, what does it take to do that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'll just tell you a little bit about us. We are a family-owned cultivator. So our initial license was a cultivation license, and that journey, I'll tell that journey as quickly as I can. But I'll just say that we started our journey in 2020, and we just got in the market in 2025. So it took us about 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
It was a long journey. Some of it are learning as new small business owners. Some of it having to do with finding, financing and making sure that we had enough funds. Um, and it was a labor of love. We actually started this process in 2020 because our son had developed a really, really passionate perspective about cannabis. And he really, really wanted to be in charge and to grow these plants. His passion is all around the growing part of our processes. So my husband, we were both from tech. He said, "Hey, let's invest in this." We debated a long time, and we invested in a cultivation license and a group of people that had the opportunity to already get sort of provisional licensing completed. This was in 2020 when COVID was around. There was a lot of space opened up. We were able to secure rent for a decent amount. There's something in marijuana called the green tax, which is really challenging for all of us small business owners because people think that we're rolling in the dough, and we're absolutely not. So we really had to go out and find private funders. We can't take any money from any of the banks that are FDIC insured.
Oh,
Uh,
really? Okay.
yeah, because marijuana is not federally legal. So that makes a lot of our industry being supported by independent investors and capital companies that are okay to take the risk. So
Right.
that's something most people don't understand, is that we don't have access to a lot of the capital, um, normal capital areas to get loans and whatnot. So it's
Hmm.
challenging that way. So you need pretty deep pockets just to get started. Anyway, we started immediately working on our space. We're in an old factory in Massachusetts. By the way, every town in our state has to approve whether or not they're going to allow marijuana. So our particular town allows it, but we that doesn't mean every town. So getting a
Mm,
license and getting approved is not just from the state perspective, but it's also from the local municipalities. So you
I
have
see.
yeah, so you have to go. There's a lot of hoops you have to jump through before you can even get to market, because of cannabis, and because cannabis is
Ha-
not legally available through the federal government. There's just a lot of
right.
extra steps you have to run through.
How many? What percentage of the towns in Massachusetts would accept it versus not?
Again, it's literally town by town. We are old school, right? In Massachusetts, we kind of have like English law. Every little community gets to decide. I don't have
Yeah.
those stats readily available. I can get them for you so we can put them in the comments. But um, there are more communities that do not allow it than allow it. I'll just put it that
Oh, okay.
way.
Wow.
So
Okay.
so
Interesting.
you've got to find communities, and then even in those communities, you have to be so many yards away from schools and churches and community events. So, you know, you as a cultivator and as a dispensary owner, or anybody who's producing products with cannabis, you have to be really careful in Massachusetts where you go,
Mm,
how you set up, getting all the town's approvals. And once you do that, then it goes into actually setting it up. And just like any manufacturing, you have to decide in advance, how does your setup want to work? How is it most effective? For us, we are an indoor greenhouse. We do everything through water drip lines with cocoa bags. We decided that we wanted to keep our space requirements smaller so that we didn't have to pay as much rent. And so we built a two-tier racking system to put our
mm,
plants on and to double our space in our rooms. That has challenges, as you might, people have to get up on ladders and have to take care of the
right.
plants. So that has its own unique challenges, but we've been able to make it work for us. Um, you know, so the setup, the water, we try to recycle all of our water so that we don't put anything back into the environment. So it's kind of a
Oh,
constant reuse of water. Um, you have to find the right nutrients that you want to use. It's a plant, so think about, instead of having marijuana leaves in your mind, think about tomatoes. Right, there's all different types of tomatoes. They all take different types of nutrients depending on the type. And so really the big decision after we got the build out done, and to be really fair to the audience, we just keep building as we grow. So we our strategy was really crawl, walk, run. Because we're self investing, we can't outlay millions of dollars to get everything set up beautifully. So we decided, what is the quickest way to entry into the market? What do we need to spend? What do we need to set up to accommodate that? And then as our business has grown, we've then invested and we've added rooms and we've added um, our processing capabilities. We also have a production license so that we can make things with our plant versus just selling the plant. But really the
mm,
first decision you have to make is, what do you want to grow? And in Massachusetts, it's really interesting because the market, even though it's legal and it's been legal since 2016, we really don't have as educated consumers as we would like. And so, what essentially happened was that people looked at THC numbers and said, okay, I'm going to buy the highest amount of THC, which is a percentage um, of the chemical that makes you euphoric or high, right?
Mm-hmm.
Against the flower and the leaves. And what does that percentage look like? So today, we have made pretty strategic decisions in what we source for our products to sort of align to what the market needs and the market wants. And so that's the first sort of Herculean task, is getting clean plants, clean flower, and flower that'll work in the marketplace. And so there's got to be a lot of upfront sort of data collection and understanding before you even put anything in the ground.
Right. What's the what? So do you start them from seed?
So we do two things. When we initially started and we put our first plants into the ground in 2024, it was May of 2024. We actually bought clones from somebody that we knew had proprietary plants and that we knew that would work well, and that allowed us to really skip probably 4 weeks of processing and figuring out which genos we should use. We now, though, are doing geno hunting, and that is essentially we plant seeds. We have a company out of Oregon that we like. They send us seeds. That's completely legal because a seed is not a plant, so we can get things through the mail that way. And then you plant the seeds, and then it takes weeks to figure out which plant you actually want to make a mother and grow other plants from. So, you grow 4 or 5 different seeds, all the same name, all the same plant, and they all have completely different looks, smell, sizes,
Oh,
shapes.
really?
Yep. And
Wow.
that's a whole nother like 3 month process we go through to decide what is the right plant. And then what we do is once we decide which plant we want to actually grow in mass, we then start to clone that. So we create a mother and then we clone from the mother. So it's a
Hmm.
few different steps that we take, but pheno hunting takes a lot longer, but it's also much more proprietary to us, and that allows us to sort of have that particular plant that's exclusive to our business.
Right. So when you say clone, you're not saying the mother then produces seeds that you plant. There's something else you do.
We only have females. The marijuana plant is only female. So the marijuana plant, and this could be a hemp plant. This could be a cannabis. It's all cannabis, but it could be hemp, or it could be a plant that has more than 3% THC, which is considered um, marijuana that you would smoke to get high. They
Right.
are all females. You never want to have males. In the wild, there are, of course, male and females. But when you clone from a mother, from a female. And so we only have girls. We try to kill our boys off right away if one of those seeds pop a male. And because we don't want them seeding, because that creates other challenges for us. So we want our genetics to be as straightforward and as clean as possible. And that allows us to replicate every time we grow a plant. It allows us to replicate it over and over again.
How do you clone? What do you do?
Yeah. Well, any home gardener will tell you if you've got a plant at home, you take a snip of it, right? And you can put it into water and it will produce um, roots, and those
Mm-hmm.
roots then grow into a plant. And so what we do is
Okay.
we grow huge mother plants. Here's a picture for your audience, and we take snips off of those plants. We put them in a organic gel that sort of helps facilitate root growth, and then we plant them.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
so they're literally clones from the mother.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a pretty intense process. So we have a mother room and a we call it the veg room. It's our baby room, and we start all of that there. And then we also do our R&D in that room as well, to decide, what plant will actually become something that we mass produce. And then we move all of those into a flowering room. And those, so we keep in the veg room, nothing is flowering. There are no buds in that room. They're just plants. They're the mothers that are great big and are there for us to take clones. And then we move those babies into a flowering room, and we start the flowering cycle. And that's when they start to create those buds that you would normally see in your head as a marijuana plant. And that is about a 3-month process.
Okay.
It depends on the plant.
Wow.
And then we harvest, and that's another 2 weeks from a curing and a drying perspective. And we have huge racks that we dry the plants on. We actually harvest. We have a schedule of harvesting about every 8 weeks, and so we have alternating rooms that we harvest from.
Wow. A lot of planning ahead. And if you have any sort of issue with the, a blight or some sort of disease, I mean, that's going to set you back a long time.
Yeah. Well, and we have, and they're plants, right? So we have to be super diligent about cleanliness. So I always joke with people, but it's not a joke. I can go into my flower rooms and I would eat off the floor because we have to keep those flower rooms clean. We as a business have decided to never remediate our flower unless we're making it into a different product of some sort. So that means we don't microwave, we don't spray with anything that could hurt the plant or be toxic to people, and we don't use any ozone devices. And so what happens is when we put plants into our bags to sell, it's as natural as you possibly could get a plant. It's like you went into your garden and you dried and picked it and you smoked it yourself. We try to really make sure that we're as natural as possible. So that means we have to do a lot of planning, and cleanliness in our facility is paramount. We have lots of protocols to make sure our team, they have to shower every day. They come in and they change into scrubs. We have shoes that we only wear in our facility. Washing hands and keeping phones out of our rooms are ultra important. And then the other thing that people don't know about cannabis that's legalized is that all of our products have to go through stringent testing before they can even get on the market. So we have to then, after the process is done, we take samples of all of our products and we send them out to state approved labs that go through testing. And that is a challenge because testing protocols for the labs are all different. They all have different operating procedures. They all have different ways that they do their testing. And so that's been a learning situation for us, is figuring out who is the right lab partner, what works best for our flower and our conditions. And we've even gone as far as bringing in a little lab into our own facility to do pre-testing so we can tell, is there mold in this product? Is there any type of minerals that would hurt people, right? We try to do all this pre-testing in advance so that when it goes to the lab, we clear the lab testing as quickly as possible. But things happen. We actually have lost complete harvests. And as anyone would tell you, any farmer would tell you, losing a harvest is devastating. We have, luckily for us, we have our production license. So we're able to turn that product into safe product for our consumers. And, we are fortunate in that way that we're able to sort of transform the product to make it a safe and consumable product if a harvest does get lost. But yeah, it's scary. There's bugs, there's mold. I mean, in Massachusetts, it's wet, it's dry, it's got every type of weather. And so the big thing for us is keeping our space where we grow consistent with the right environments. That is what we work on every single day, is our environmentals, because that's actually what's going to help determine whether or not we have a successful crop or we don't. And that's inclusive of THC numbers. That's inclusive of all the cannabinoids and the terpenes, the smell, the taste. And so we really are fanatical about making sure that the environmentals in our space, just like any food grade sort of manufacturer would do, we do the same thing within our environments.
Right. So when you have a crop failure, you can make like gummies
Mhm.
or hash. Is that
Yep,
right?
yep. So
Okay.
we we have several partners in the state, and you know, it's one of the lovely things I think about the cannabis market today, is that it's a new market, right? And every market in the United States is legal. You can't go across state lines. And don't think people kind of understand that. So we're all contained within Massachusetts, as an example.
Mm.
That's the state we're in. And one of the things that I think is an opportunity for people in my position is that we can partner with other people that have different capabilities. So we partner with people to make pre-roll joints, marijuana cigarettes, if you will. We partner with people to take our products and produce something different. So a lot of times you can take all of the THC out of the plant and leave it in pure form. And there's different ways to do that. We happen to prefer ice water extraction, which basically is putting the plant in ice water and all of the oils come to the top.
Okay.
Think about it like at Thanksgiving, right? When you've got your turkey in, all of the fat is at the top. That's all the
Yep.
oil. That's sort of the same process.
Okay.
Um, and you do heat it and you do other things to make it consumable, but those things can be smoked alone, it can be used in a joint, it can be used in a vape, it can be used in lotions and
Mm-hmm.
topicals. So we do have that capability. This is where I said we kind of walk run, right? We're just starting to get that lab up and running, so we partner with others that we feel do an amazing and excellent job, and so we're able to turn our products if they do have issues, if maybe the THC isn't high enough or we just need more material that's different. You know, I will say that we're like any other sort of industry in that, you know, some things that you manufacture might have a better return on your investment versus other things. Right now, we are really struggling. The flower market has really kind of bottomed out in Massachusetts. When we started, a pound of marijuana was worth like $4,000 to $5,000, and
Okay.
now it's under 800.
Oh
So
wow. Holy
yeah,
cow.
yeah. But hash and other products have a better return on investment. So, you know, we look at the market, and before we decide whether we're going to come out with gummies, as an example, which is a saturated market in Massachusetts, we decided no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do other products that have a higher return, and that are not as popular, but yet, you know, still kind of hold their pricing. And so
Mm-hmm.
we have to make analysis just like any other sort of business out there, like what is the right thing to produce, what's the right thing to invest in, who are the right partners to work with. You know, one of the big things that I think people don't understand, as far as uh, this particular market is we have packaging challenges just like every other manufacturer out there, right? The
Right.
macroeconomic environment affects us just like it does any other business. Um, but we just don't have the same kind of resources for support and help that non-federally legal companies are allowed. And so it's one of the things that I feel really passionate about is that, you know, there's not enough science around this plant. There's not enough support for what this plant can do for the public. It really is an amazing plant that, you know, there's just not enough science known about. And as part of this market, you know, I'm really passionate about helping people understand it. I was in tech for 31 years. I did all the things right. And coming into a regulated business that has some of the stigma, and we won't even go down that road because there's not enough time, but the stigma around it, I'm really trying to educate people like we're a product just like any other. And we are really working hard to make sure that not only do we get more support, just like other businesses get and have, that we are really trying to help educate the public about this plant and take some of the stigma off, because it's challenging, right? When we aren't able to. I'll give you one example. As a woman-owned business, I tried to go and get certified from the federal government, and it took me months
Mm-hmm.
to get down the process, months, and so much paperwork. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and at the end, literally at the 11th hour, they said, "Oh, we're sorry, we can't certify you because what you sell is not federally approved."
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like, wait a minute. So all of these things that I could get are denied to me because of the product that we grow and sell. And so, and there's demand for this product, and there's opportunities for this product to be really helpful to our society. And yet, you know, these little things come up, and then, you've got to find ways to jump around or get around it so that you can accomplish your goals. So there's a lot
Right.
of strategy around being in this particular marketplace, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a very tough business to be in, and it's shocking to hear the reduction in margin too on the on the buds. Um, yeah, I can't imagine dealing with all of that. Also, you got the uncertainty of just being in the plant business, and then you've got the additional regulation, the additional taxes, the limitation on geography,
Yep.
because you can only sell in Massachusetts. Is that true for everyone? There's nobody that can sell a car
Nope.
there. There's no license.
Nope. The
I'm
only
surprised. Like,
the
I'm
only
surprised
thing.
there isn't like a compact. I know that the massage industry is right now working on a compact for licensing, where if you're a massage therapist in Utah, you could move to Florida and your license still works, just like a driver's license. But yeah, I'm surprised there's not
Yep.
any of that going on.
No, I will tell you. So there's a couple things that get confused in the industry. So hemp, which is a cannabis plant, just like what we grow here, um, is grown for CBD, let's say, right, or for rope, or for other industrial type of products, and that is federally available and federally legal. So you can,
Okay.
as a hemp grower, uh, carefully go over state lines, and you have, if you follow this at all, there's a lot of news right now about THC infused drinks made of hemp.
Yeah. Yep.
well,
Yep.
well, frankly, it's the same product. It's the same plant. It's just that the THC is coming from something that is less than a plant that's grown for THC, if you will, right?
Right.
Hemp is
Right.
more industrial, and I would say marijuana is more something that you would want to use not only for recreation but medical. So that is challenging. But no, every company in the United States has to come in. So there are lots of multi-state operators. They're called MSOs. They're also some of them are on the stock market. They come in and they either get their own licensing, or what they've traditionally done is buy some other license or some established company. And so but they cannot sell across state lines. That's not
I
legally
see.
approved. So
I
there are
see.
companies that run in multi-state, but they have to adhere to all of the different state requirements. There's nothing that sort of is common across any of our states. So all the rules, all of the regulation, all the requirements, all the testing, all different across every state. And so
Mm.
that's, we're a craft cultivator. So we are really trying to build, I would say, a high end product, if you will, a high end in quality and a high end in taste and in feeling. And and again, and in price point, right? And there's a lot of companies out there and a lot of people who don't, they just want inexpensive weed. They want they want the effects, but they don't care necessarily about brand or whatnot. And I would say that, you know, that is a challenge for multi-state operators to create that consistency, right, across all their
Hmm.
brands, across all their states. And it's just another sort of hurdle that they have to jump through. And then with
Right.
the price falling out, it is how much can you grow and how inexpensively can you grow it. And it's just not something that we decided that And we got in right the second phase, right? We did not make it through the first phase when the money was abundant and anyone would buy your weed for any price. We are really in a very competitive cost situation right now. But
Right.
because and we're just like any other company, we have to think about that, and we have to think about our brand, and we have to think about what we want to stand for. And I think it's challenging. It's a challenging market right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean a lot of the characteristics that you listed off are somewhat subjective as well. So,
Yes.
so how do you decide, what tastes good to one person, not necessarily to another? What are the how do you determine whether or not it meets the standard when everybody might have a different perspective?
Well, that is extremely one of the. It's an extremely hard question to answer because cannabis affects every cannabis strain, every cannabis plant affects humans differently, and every human differently, right? We all have our internal cannabinoid systems, and that is new science, right? That's within the last 10 years that scientists have figured out that, like the marijuana plant, we also have that system within ourselves. And those systems react with the plant's makeup all different. So, as a consumer of marijuana, what I suggest to people is to my grower says your nose knows. So, when you go to look at plants and you go to look at strains, they kind of say there's two types of plants: a sativa, which allows you to be more up and energetic and more creative, and then the indica, which is more relaxed, more used for sleep, more body relaxing. Those
Okay.
are sort of two types, and then there's hybrid, right? But every strain has a different taste, has a different makeup. And so you as a consumer, should really try things based on what you want to feel, and talk to your bud tender, talk to your dispensary owner. But what my grower says, and this is very true, your nose knows. So if you smell something and you're like, "Ooh, I love that. It smells like pine," right? That might be the right choice for you. And if you know that, look, I just want something to help me go to sleep, right? Then you pick something that has a THC. It's an indica strain, and that's grown differently than a sativa. And if you like the smell of lavender or pine, there are plants that smell like that, and that will help achieve your goals, as an example. But I can't tell you, Nate, hey, Nate, this is the exact strain for you based on what you like, unless you talk to me about it. And I think that's one of the great things about going to a dispensary and talking to bud tenders, especially those that are educated. What do you want to feel? What do you like? What do you like to eat? Do you like savory? Do you like sweet? All of the marijuana strains out there, and there are hundreds of them, have a different profile that can work for you. And so what I tell people is, smell it, uh, be very honest about what you're looking for in the plant, and the bud tender should be able to get you something or a couple of choices that will help you find something that you like. And
Right.
there's, if you don't like smoking, then try a gummy or try something that's edible. I will say that, um, you know, there are different ways based on how you consume the plant, how much time it will take for you. If you smoke or inhale, you will feel that feeling pretty much immediately. If you take an edible, it may take you 20 minutes, but it may last a lot longer, right? And
Right.
so you also have to know, like, what are the effects of this type of consumption, and what do I want to get out of that? It's
Right.
it's interesting because it's like drugs, right? And it is a drug. But when I say drugs, it's like pharmaceuticals, right? People take different pharmaceuticals for different things, and there might be different types of medicine that helps you more than others, right? Take anxiety medicine. There's a whole host of anxiety medicines out there, but it doesn't necessarily work for everyone. The same is true for the different strains of marijuana. It can work for one person beautifully, and you can feel good and be euphoric. and that same strain may have the opposite effect or not have the similar characteristics for another person, and that's because it's the way it interacts with your internal systems essentially.
Right, right. So, what's your perspective? I mean, you're obviously passionate about marijuana, and it sounds like your son is very much so as well. Um, from the perspective of non-smoker,
Yep.
it seems to me that when marijuana became more publicly accepted, I feel like now it is quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
You smell it everywhere. It's like everywhere you go, it's like, holy cow, you never used to smell marijuana unless you were like in, Ocean Beach, California, right? There you would, even 10 years ago, you'd smell it everywhere. So it seems to me like there's a lot more people using it than ever before, which, you know, I see as potentially a negative consequence of legalization. And I'm sure it's very easy to disagree with me, and if it's got a reasonable medical use and it's legitimately helping people versus somebody just being stoned out of their mind all day long and not doing anything else, I would assume you're kind of getting both, right? You're probably helping more people, but you're also hurting some people.
Well, here's what I would say to that. First of all, I don't think there's more people smoking or not smoking. I just think when you're in states that it's legalized, it's easy because and by the way, you're not supposed to smoke in public, right? That is not part of what Massachusetts allows you to do, or at least it's not supposed to be smoked in public spaces. But I will say that it's legalized, and so I think if you're going to smoke marijuana, you're going to smoke it, and um, I I do think that people are a little more free with it. So I think that it's not that you have more people smoking. It's that those people that are smoking are a little more free with it because it's legalized in the
Right.
state. So that's
Right.
one. Two, I'm just going to give you a little anecdote. Alcohol is down right now, right? Alcohol drinking, and I would say that part of it is that alcohol, right, has become destigmatized. But I will say alcohol has a worse effect on a human being than maybe even marijuana. And we're not going to
Sure.
get into a medical debate here because neither of us are doctors. But what I would say is, I've had parties before. I have an event space, and I've had parties with alcohol, and my house and my place is left trashed, and it's people have gotten sick. And I've had parties where there's just marijuana consumption, and people are on the couch, they're relaxed, they're laid back, they clean up after themselves, nobody's sick in the bathroom.
Right.
And so
Right.
I think that the stoner on the couch is something that has been used as a weapon against this particular product. And again, marijuana is not for everyone. Alcohol is not for everyone. Like I'm not here to say one is better than the other. But what I would say is, if you're gonna drink or you're gonna smoke, you're gonna do it whether it's legal or illegal. And for me, having it legalized means that there's safer product on the shelves.
Right.
Kids are not getting legal marijuana from a dispensary, right? You have to go through 3 ID checks just to buy marijuana in Massachusetts. So
Mm.
no child is getting served. And people who sort of fearmonger that, hey, it's all out there and kids get access to it, that's the whole reason you should legalize it. Because if there's things that are illegal, it's easier for kids and minors to get these products than it would be if it's regulated like alcohol is. Um,
Right.
but I would tell you that stoner on the couch, that's not someone that I'm necessarily going to hire to work for me, and neither would you. But he's going to be stoned on the couch, or he's going to be drunk on the couch, regardless of whether this is legal. And I would say that
Right.
legalization helps keep the product safe, and it does actually make our streets safer because there's less crime, right? There's less
Mhm.
worry about it. And so and that means less costs to the public, right, to the taxpayer. So the other
Right.
thing is that it brings in a hell of a lot of tax revenue to our state, which helps with hunger, reentry programs, the public at large. And I don't think enough gets said about that, or talked about as well, about the benefits of that tax revenue. And I think it could
Right.
help our country if we lessened up a bit. But it's a
Yeah.
debate that will continue on, I'm sure. But if you smell it and you don't like it, go to the other side of the street, just like your social. Pass it on by.
Yeah, I mean it's not necessarily like a huge issue. To me, it kind of smells like a skunk.
They must not be smoking our stuff
which,
then.
which I don't mind. But no, I mean, I certainly get the argument, and it also makes a lot of sense that given the fragile nature of the plant, there's probably a lot of people out there that would shortcut the process and spray it with pesticides and do
Mhm.
all kinds of things that are not going to be good for you when you smoke it. So I definitely see the benefit, because I'm very much against that sort of stuff on my food, and so it does make sense that it would be a safer product. And these days too, like, you just worry about getting things added to it,
Yep.
fentanyl and stuff like that, and
Yep.
like, you'd hate to see somebody think they're just smoking weed and end up with a overdose on their hands.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly why you're making the case for legalization, because we have to go through all this testing, and any consumer that buys can get like the full testing information from their
Yep.
dispensary. Like it's not hidden; it's publicly available. And I think, for me as a mother, I would much rather that my kid goes into a store that we can get the COAs on, certificate of analysis on what they're purchasing, just like you would get for any pill at a CVS or a Walgreens, right? Like, tell me
Yep.
about this information and know exactly what's in it. Versus, when we were growing up, and I'm dating myself, these were like back alley situations, and you were just happy to have weed, that no one cared what the strain was or whatever, right? But you never knew what was on it. And I suspect I probably myself consumed things that I would hate to consume now, right? Knowing what I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
It's been an educational process going into this particular business. And again, I didn't get into it because I'm like so passionate about cannabis. I got into it because I saw that there was an opportunity to make money, to build a business, and to try to do some good in the marketplace with the product. Um, and I got to say, I've met my team here has been incredible. They're all passionate about the product. There is a community here that can help educate and teach people if they're willing to listen. And I think, you know, the one thing I can tell you about marijuana is that, if you're standing around and you're sharing a joint, people are usually pretty happy. They're pretty chill, and
Right.
you can engage in a conversation. Whereas, other products out there that you might use to try to get the same thing, you have much different effects.
Yep.
And I think that it's time to sort of kill the stigma of it, because at the end of the day, people are going to do it if it's legal or not, right? And
Right.
so let's make it legal. Let's get all the benefits of other products, and let's make sure the products are safe, right? As safe as
Right.
they can be.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, I completely agree with you. The best comparison is really the alcohol industry. And while I do drink, as I get older, I drink less and less and less,
Mhm.
because I have done enough research. I understand how damaging it is. I mean, it's absolutely terrible for you.
It is.
I mean, basically, it converts into acetone or acetol. I can't remember but it's terrible stuff that
It
kills
is.
your liver, kills your cells, kills your brain
It,
cells,
it does. It does. And
shortens
I
your
mean, as I
lifespan.
get older, I can't rebound like I used to, and it doesn't. I have to drink more to get the effects that I had when I was younger, that good feeling. And I just,
Yeah.
like you said, it's just terrible for your body. And so, there's the shame of cannabis not being legally available across every, federally legal, is that research funds and things that are happening in other countries and other places, Canada and the UK, are doing research around how marijuana helps with cancer, helps
Hmm.
with Alzheimer's and dementia. Like
Oh, wow.
we are missing a lot of the medical studies because we keep using the stigma of the plant. Um, this plant has been here since, you know, the creation of Earth. Like this was something that was given to us as medicine, right? And if you
Yep.
read enough history about it and whatnot, it's terrible, specifically what the U.S. and other governments have done to really not only criminalize the plant, but create uh, public opinion that is just wrong about it and
Well,
misinformed.
it's the pharma lobby. I mean, the pharmaceutical lobby is probably the largest, most powerful, most profitable of any other
Yep.
industry.
Yep.
And I agree. I mean, they're not. It's not just marijuana, but they are shutting down natural alternatives, natural things that can work and help people across the board. It isn't just this. I'm into like
It's true.
peptides, for example. I don't know if you've heard of like BCP 157. Remarkable effects. You know, you inject it into a bad knee or a shoulder, and your body heals incredibly fast. They want to take this off the market. You can currently buy it for research purposes, but it's not FDA approved. But why isn't it? How hard would it be to do a study on it? But they don't want to do a study on it because they want to be able to continue to say that it's just not FDA approved.
Correct, and because it'll put their other products out of business, right? The pain
Right.
medications, and
Yep.
and I think, I think getting back to basics and back to natural health is so important. But like you said, you have to research it to the ends of the earth. You have to understand it, and then you have to self medicate because doctors aren't taught about these things either. And it is a
Yep.
shame. And I will, the other thing that I know, I've got. Being in tech, I have a lot of friends that have pharmaceutical companies as clients. And when we talk about marijuana and cannabis, all of them have labs that they're growing. And when this becomes federally legal, you will see they will turn on a dime and they will have their own products for this, right? They are
Yep.
developing things quietly. The next generation will be completely different than the generation that's running things right now in our government, and things will change. But I will tell you, the food industry's prepping for it, the pharmaceutical companies prepping for it. And so I'm kind of making the case like I kind of like it not federally legal because these big companies are going to come in and it will be like every other brand on the market today, right? It'll be in the
Right.
grocery
Everything
stores.
consolidates into a couple big brands, and that's all you
Exactly,
get.
exactly.
Yep.
And that's a shame because they will grow plants that are hardy, that are bug resistant, that grow a certain way, and then there'll only be a few types of things you can get, and it will really limit all of the possibilities and all the goodness that the market has and that the plant has today, right? All of its incarnations, if you will.
Right.
So yeah, it's an interesting time to be alive for sure. And I think it's an interesting time to see what is actually going to happen in the next 10, 15 years with this particular plant because so many states are approving it. And even if it's not recreationally approved, it's medically approved. And again, my hope is that there's more independent studies done, more medical studies done. And this is where pharma could really help us get back to nature and help us use this plant for good because it does
Yeah.
so much for so many, and
Yep.
you hear these things on 60 Minutes or on Dateline or on the news about kids, who have tremors and seizures that it helps them. And yet it's so hard to get the product in certain places. And so I do hope that, with efforts like myself and others that are in the industry that I'm just a normal person like everyone else. I'm not a stoner like you would imagine a stoner to be. And by the way, executives out there, they're all smoking behind the scenes too. Like it's this, it's done. Like let's stop hiding it. It's
Yeah.
silly in a way.
Yeah. No, yeah, I mean, it is an important topic because I think the fight that you're fighting is applicable, like I said, to so many other spaces, even psychedelics, psilocybin,
Yes.
LSD, these things that have been so heavily stigmatized by the war on drugs from the 1980s, they shut down all research on them. But there are a lot of credible studies that show
Mm.
that you can cure people's depression, PTSD,
Mental health
people that are in their
issues.
final stages of life,
Yes.
and we just shut them down because the pharmaceutical industry isn't there to heal anybody. They're there to keep people hooked and to keep making profits.
Yeah.
And I know that that's a big conspiracy theorist thing to say, but the evidence shows because they shut down everything that has any sort of a natural origin that they haven't put their dirty fingerprints on.
Yeah. I it's so hard, right? Because they've invested a lot of money, time, and energy too. So I understand their perspective as a business. Um, but I also think that if they took the reins off a little bit from their narrow mindedness and open themselves up a little to the opportunities of what all these plants can do for people, I think they'd be in a better position, right? I think they'd actually make more money. But when you're making money, and you've got something that works, it's really hard to deviate from that, right? Because it's working. And so, putting my hat on for them, I can see where there's resistance. I
Well, the
will.
nature of something working, though,
I
is that
know.
somebody eventually doesn't need it anymore, which is where, the loss in profits comes in.
Yes, I know. I realize that, and I think I'm obviously more on your side of the perspective and the opinion. Being where I'm at, it's a challenging situation, and I think too. The costs are crazy, right? And I just think that how the pharmaceutical company works with our government is, there needs to be some reforms there for sure, but I can't
Yeah.
see them happening anytime soon.
No. No.
I think people kind of like things the way that they are, but I will say that, to your point, right, all of these plants where there's independent studies or where there's more forward thinking around how these things can help, if you need something to help you, my father's had a stroke and he's disabled, and he needs something that will help unlock what has been locked up with that stroke in his brain. And I've read tons of studies that psilocybin really helps unlock and create different
Right.
connections in
Pathways.
your
Yeah.
brain. But he's on so many pharmaceutical drugs. I'm afraid to add that to it, and then something, that's part of why we need more research and more understanding, because
Right.
the mixtures of these things, can be toxic. And so you have to be really careful.
Yep. No, that makes a lot of sense. Well, fascinating conversation, Anna. I give you a ton of respect for the guts to start this business and to make it what you have so far. I wish you the best of luck. I know you've got a tough road ahead of you with all the changing market conditions and all the other challenges, but you're obviously a very intelligent person. I think you're going to find your way through it. So thanks a lot.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And listen, if anyone has questions, please reach out. I'm always open to having the conversation. And I appreciate Nate for taking on this topic. I know it's not typical of your audience, but I hope nonetheless they've at least learned a little something today. So thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're very welcome. All right. Thanks, Anna.
Thank you.